Hey friends, welcome to Workplace 20. I'm your host, Mrs. Clausen. This is our lesson on the surface area and volume of a cone. So a cone is like the shape of a teepee, a cone like a highway cone. So a couple things with cones that make it a little bit tricky is that we deal with the slant height when we are calculating the surface area. So the surface area formula for a cone is pi r squared, which is that circle on the bottom, plus pi times the radius times the slant height. So we need slant height and radius when I'm calculating the surface area, but the volume is pi r squared times the height divided by 3. And I actually prefer to write it, and on your formula sheet I wrote it like this, pi r squared h divided by 3. I think it makes it a little bit easier. We just calculate that and then divide it by 3. So it's like the cylinder. If you remember, the formula for the volume of a cylinder was pi r squared times height. We take the cylinder and we divide it in 3. Okay, so volume, we want to use the up and down height through the center. Surface area, we want the slant height. So what's going to happen here is we sometimes end up having to use the Pythagorean theorem to calculate one side or the other if they're not given to us. So just to speed things up here, I'm not going to do both surface area and volume of these. I'm going to do volume of the top one. So I'm going to do volume here, and I'm going to do surface area here. Okay, just because we don't need to do it multiple times. So if I'm going to do volume, so the volume of a cone is pi r squared height divided by 3. So I need to have the radius. So in my cone here, I can see 28 goes all the way across. So my radius will be the 28 divided by 2, which is going to be 14 meters. And I want to use the height. So I want halfway across. And I want to use this up and down height right there, which is given to me as 48. So I'm going to plug that in, pi times 14 squared times 48, and I will take my answer and divide it by 3. And when I put that into my calculator, it gives me 9,852.0, and this will be meters cubed because it's a volume. Okay, so that one's fairly self-explanatory. Number 2, want surface area. So remember, for surface area, we need the radius. So I have the radius here, it's 8 centimeters. I also need the slant height. So slant height is the slanted side here. Okay, so you can see that I'm going to have to calculate that. So hopefully you can see that this is a right angled triangle. And this is 8 and 15. And I want to calculate C, right? So C squared equals 8 squared plus 15 squared. So 8 squared plus 15 squared is 289. And then I need to square root on both sides of the equation there. So my hypotenuse of my triangle is 17. So that means that my slant height is 17 centimeters. Okay, so now I can go ahead and calculate my surface area. Surface area of a cone formula from my formula sheet or from up above says pi r squared plus pi rs. So pi times my radius, which is 8 squared, plus pi times the radius times the slant height. Okay, so sometimes you have to do a Pythagorean theorem calculation to get the number that you need, either the slant height or the height through the middle. So I'm going to plug that into my calculator and get an answer. So that comes out to be 628.3. This is centimeters, so it's going to be centimeters squared because it's an area. So make sure you're watching your units. Area has to be in units squared and volume in units cubed. All right, let's calculate, do another couple. So if the surface area of a cone is 44, the radius is 2, what is the slant height? So this is one of the ones where we have to do some substituting. So I've got the surface area and I've got the radius, and it's asking me for the slant height. It's a cone, so start by writing down the formula. Surface area is equal to pi r squared plus pi rs. So I have 44. The radius is 2. Okay, we're going to take our calculator and turn those two things into numbers. So that gives me 44 is equal to 12.6 plus 6.3 s. Just for the record, I hate the variable s. I get it confused with a 5 all the time. So I'm going to subtract 12.6 from both sides. So 44 take away 12.6 gives me 31.4. I'm just going to go up here. So 31.4 equals 6.3 times s. So I'm going to divide by 6.3 on both sides. And that gives me a slant height of 5.0 meters. All right, a cake decorator rolls a piece of stiff paper into a cone. She cuts the tip off of the cone and uses it as a funnel to pour decorative sprinkles into small containers. The cone, so we've got a cone, it has a radius of 6 centimeters and a height of 18 centimeters. What is the volume of the cone before the tip was cut off? So we want to find the volume. So the volume of a cone formula is pi r squared times I divided by 3. So we need the radius and the height. I have those two pieces of information, so it's just a matter of plugging into the formula. 6 squared times 18, we're going to divide that by 3. And when I do that, I end up with 678.6, and it'll be centimeters cubed. One last example here. It says that a teepee has a diameter of 16. I'm just going to draw myself a little picture here. So all the way across the teepee is 16 feet, and its height at the center is 18 feet. So the formula for the surface area, if I want to find canvas, I'm finding surface area. So we know that the surface area of a cone is pi r squared plus pi r s. Oops, I accidentally wrote a squared in there. It's pi r s, which means I need a slant height. So when we look at this, I have to just be careful because what I want is the height down the middle, which is 18, but then from there out to the edge, the whole diameter is 16 feet. So this is only 8, right? So I want to calculate the hypotenuse there. So c squared is equal to 18 squared take away plus 8 squared, sorry, not take away. 18 squared plus 8 squared gives me 388. So I'm going to square root to get c by itself. So the square root of 388 is 19.7 feet. Okay, so that tells me then that my slant height, so I know then that my radius is 8 feet and my slant height is 19.7 feet. So I can go ahead and plug those numbers into my formula. So pi times the radius squared plus pi times the radius times the slant height, and put it in your calculator. And my surface area is 696.2 feet squared. Okay, so that is some examples of cones. They're a little bit trickier because there's the Pythagorean theorem in there, but you don't always have to use it. It just depends what's given to you. So I want you to go ahead and work through the practice questions now.